Maybe you like cooking. Maybe you don't. Either way, the new Blue Apron is for you. Because along with our classic meal kits, we're offering new pre-made and one-pan meals to help you get dinner on the table fast. And now there's no subscription needed, so you can just order and enjoy. Do delicious food your way. Shop 100+ meals at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Gritty win for plucky Manchester United, holding on at home against West Ham. I hate to feel like this, but 12 months on, not a lot's changed, has it?
Oh, come on. Everything has changed 12 months on. Things that were different today than they would have been under Moyes. Playing McNair, a very bold decision. There's no way Moyes would have done that, and he essentially saved the game for us with that dramatic late back header. Some of the football on show when we had 11 men on the pitch was absolutely lovely to watch. Radamel Falcao's first touch wasn't there this time a year ago. And actually, like, in a lot of ways, I feel that team needed a gritty 2-1 win more than it needed another 4-0 showpiece. Of course, we'd all have enjoyed that more. But after the sort of capitulation against Leicester, I was quite impressed by the fact that their heads didn't go when they went down to 10 men.
The heads didn't go, but I think that might say something more about the resetting of expectations than the quality of the team. I mean, look, there's more to come from this side, and I'm sure United will come good. There's too much talent to not come good, of course, but there wasn't a lot that was impressive about the game against West Ham for me, honestly. I mean, the football was nice at times during the first half. The forward play was slick. The passing was of the standard you'd expect for players of that kind of quality, Di Maria and Van Persie and Falcao on the side. But at the back, you always felt that West Ham were in it, and after the break, West Ham were really the dominant side, I'd say, until Wayne Rooney got sent off, and they were definitely the dominant side after that.
Yes, absolutely. Right, where I was sitting, that really definitely looked like a sending off. So I was sitting about on the halfway line, Sir Alex stand, tier 2, pretty lovely view of that. It looked to me like he tried to do a professional foul, and instead he ended up absolutely leathering the kid that he was trying to foul, Downing, I think, right?
It's a good summary, yep. It was an attempt at a professional foul. It was Wayne Rooney's first touch of a professional foul. So he's tried to clip the lad, and he's absolutely whacked him. It's hard to argue, right? Because normally that would be a yellow. If you just take a player out, you take one for the team, right? Because West Ham were on the break and had something like 4 against 3 or something like that. And Wayne Rooney's tried to take one for the team, but he's absolutely made a hash of it, and he's taken Downing out of the kneecaps. And, it's just borderline, because I don't think he's actually trying to kick the guy at the kneecaps. So it's reckless rather than dangerous, I suppose. But it's hard to argue with a red card, and they did try and argue. Hilarious moment late in the second half when Raphael does get taken out with a professional foul on the edge of the West Ham box, and he goes absolutely mental at the referee, and correctly a yellow card. So, I don't think United have too much to argue about with either of those incidents.
I mean, it was a beautiful moment because suddenly everyone around me is going absolutely ballistic at the ref for not sending someone off for like slightly tripping Raphael on the edge of our own box. It was ridiculous. Like, the crowd turned hard on the referee when he sent Rooney off, even though it was like, it looked a pretty sensible decision. And they give it the old Rooney and clapping him off the pitch when he's massively let the team down again. It's just ridiculous. He's just Wayne Rooney, and his relationship with some of the Old Trafford faithful is unshakable, and they just want to see spirit and passion and all that, and intelligence and guile goes out the window.
Yeah, well, it should move from Rooney to Booney, really.
It really should. All right, so I want to talk about some positives, because I think this is often the case, right? When you go to the game, you have a much less measured view of the game because you get caught up in the excitement of it all. And I thought there was a ton of massive positives in the first half in particular. Like, our attacking play was great. Robin van Persie's goal, what does it look like on telly? Because it looked brilliant from the stands.
Yeah, fine goal, shifted it and slotted it in with his right, didn't he? Didn't have to use Rooney, and he didn't. So, I mean, two decent goals from United, really. And look, you're right, the attacking play was very positive from United. You kind of expect that, given the talent that United have on show. If the attacking play was all wrong, you'd seriously be worrying. Of course, they'll get to know each other even better. It's the defensive side of things that's the problem. And of course, there are circumstances beyond Van Gaal's control this time round. He's gone back to a back four these days, last couple of games, lost 3 games, in fact, and it wasn't his choice to play McNair, of course. If the 4 players ahead of McNair in the pecking order had been fit, then one of those or 2 of those would have played. But it wasn't to be. McNair put in a decent performance on debut. I thought, some nerves, some good saving tackles, brought the ball forward well. He's those who've seen him in the reserves know he's a very good player. He's destined for good things. We'll see whether it's good or great with him in time. But the whole shape of the back four is a little worrying. The 2 fullbacks push forward because they have to, otherwise United will have zero width at all. I don't think any of the centre-backs really have looked comfortable in any system today, and I'm afraid people run past Daley Blind. So, he's a good player, Daley Blind, but he's not a great one, and, I don't think he'll ever become that, in all honesty. The sides of his game that are good are generally decent defensive instincts, very good passing range, looks very good on the ball, probably better attacking qualities than defensive qualities, even as a defensive midfielder. And so a lot of that's worrying, and these are the reasons why, even when Smalling, Jones and Evans and Blackett come back, these are the reasons why United won't quite make it into the top 2 this season. 3 and 4 look a bit dodgy as well from here.
Okay, I don't know. I guess you might be right. That wasn't my take on the defensive shape at all. I thought Luke Shaw did really well on his debut. I thought Raphael was maybe man of the match.
Raphael was excellent. Yeah, Shaw did very well too, but they both bombed on and left massive holes behind them.
They did, but I thought Rocco did really well. I thought Rocco's leadership was outstanding. Like, he was constantly talking to McNair and really, like, there was so much encouragement. We were talking last week about Rooney laying one on Tyler Blackett, not laying one, but screaming at Tyler Blackett, and it was the exact opposite. Like, everyone around McNair was talking him through that game, basically, in a really overt way, and that was really nice. And Blind was, like, instrumental in any calm and measured possession that United had, and he was also constantly in the face of the opposition, and I don't know, I've got a pretty big football crush on Daley Blind. I thought he was superb for a lot of the game today, and not that you were saying he wasn't, you were just saying people run past him, and that might be the case, but he also stopped a lot of people running past him, and he was marshalling and pointing and getting people to kind of work the system in a really smart way. So I actually thought we looked really cohesive and really functional right up to the point that we went down to 10 men. And even then, we were tigerish, which was nice to see.
Yeah, interesting, this one. So West Ham created 13 chances. It's quite a lot more than United did. Of course, some of that's to do with United going down to 10 men. Mind you, at Old Trafford with the players that United have. You'd think there would be a gap in the quality between these two sides. But they created a lot of chances before Rooney left the pitch as well. So in those first 20 minutes of the second half, whatever it took before Rooney was sent off, West Ham were pretty dominant. They picked a tactic in the second half at least, which was to go direct. United didn't look sure at all. And one of the things that's kind of worrying is that David De Gea didn't look very sure either. And maybe some of that's because players in front of him weren't giving him the confidence that he normally has. I'm not sure, but I don't know. I'm not sure I see this as rosy as you. I think United will leak a lot of goals this season, whomever is in the back four, unless something changes, And
definitely,
you might have a man crush on Blind. I think I could probably pick 10 defensive midfielders out in world football that are better than him. It's not really to have a go at Blind. He's a good player, but the fact that United signed him on the the last day of the transfer window tells you something, right? They were chasing other players, and he was the safe fallback that United could sign, quote unquote, in 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess time will tell. You're probably right. He looked really, really terrific and like the player we've been missing for years. And actually, a lot of the less good football he played came when he was then playing alongside Darren Fletcher. And Blint and Fletcher, no way. That's like, obviously, the mobility problem is magnified then, as opposed to like Herrera really is extremely mobile. So Herrera and Blint together work.
So put it like this, right? I think Blint will be a massive asset when United are dominant and transitioning from defence to attack. And he's going to be a really big asset when United are not dominant, which he's going to be in quite a few games this season. Then I'm not sure he's going to be the same kind of massive asset. And we might want someone who's a bit more physical in there as well, and don't have that option right now anyway.
Yeah, I don't disagree that we still need someone that's a bit more physical in there, but I just, he made 3 tackles today, 3 successful tackles, and like 4 clearances, won 3 out of his 6 duels. I'm not just listing stats, but it's like these are not terrible defensive stats by any means. Like a defensive midfielder at United who makes 3 tackles. It's been a long time since we had a player who does that on a kind of regular basis. I know it's not a lot, but it might not sound a lot, but it's a fairly significant number, especially with Herrera. Like the two of them they're terriers, they don't stop. They're constantly hassling. I think, there's a problem still when teams get on top of us. And I think some of that is still psychological. I think some of that is down to lack of confidence, but some of it is down to lack of physical presence. That is definitely a problem at United, no question.
Yeah, well, those are some of the things that come out of the game. I mean, look, in the aggregate of this season, it's still not good yet. I'm fully confident that United will come good this season. It will happen eventually. I don't know what's happening down at the magical Carrington Medical Centre that they spent millions on, sponsored by whatever medical imaging company. I think was it Hitachi, one of them anyway. And I don't know what's going on down there, but it's not working. Right? United had 9 players out injured today, plus Blackett makes 10. And it'll be about a similar number next week against Everton, won't it? Because Rooney will be suspended, Blackett will be back, but a lot of injuries. This isn't good enough. And frankly, when Evans and Smalling have not been injured, they didn't look very good. So there's still plenty of question marks, but I've absolutely no doubt that United are going to be a lot better than they have been to date. In reality, there's only really been that performance against QPR, and the rest of them lots of question marks. And I think going forward, United are going to be a lot better than defensively, and that's kind of obvious, right? You just look at the names, right? And then you look at the names at the back, and there's too many question marks over all of them. And a lot of it's fitness, and with Rojo, it's been new, and with Luke Shaw, it's can he make his mark in the team? Very, very good debut, I thought. I think he's going to have a lot to offer United. I mean, did we ever doubt that? A very talented player. And Raphael, we want that kind of performance rather than the one that we saw against Leicester.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm not sure he did too much wrong against Leicester, did he? But, that's...
Well, aside from never actually being in the right position, yeah. So, but apart from that...
Yeah. But anyway, he was magnificent today, and I kind of agree, but I think that the fact that this team, I mean, you can say, given the quality difference on the pitch, then this should be the minimum expectation. But that hasn't been reality. We have capitulated all season. Last season, we capitulated. Last season, we would have lost this game. I mean, I just said that with great authority, but of course it's a complete intangible. But I would have backed us to lose this game. And the fact that we held on, there was a lot of really smart little things that happened to enable us to hold on to. And West Ham created a lot of chances. They didn't create a lot of very good chances, though, did they?
Well, Valencia could have had a couple of goals. I mean, hit the woodwork, didn't he? And then there were some others where he got into good shooting positions. So, I mean, I think Allardyce said afterwards he could have had a hat-trick. Maybe that was an exaggeration. I don't know. His finishing's that good, but... They create some good chances, enough to, leave Old Trafford thinking they might feel sorry for themselves that they didn't get the point. But you're right, United actually defended very well after Rooney was sent off, and that was a good thing, although some of it was pretty agricultural. Rosed was sought frequently.
Yeah.
This was not an attempt to play it out of the back, and maybe that's what was needed. And of course, we want all these things to come together. We want United to defend with authority, bring it out from the back, and then let the ton of creative talent be destructive in the attacking end, and I guess it's not all going to come together at one time.
No, absolutely not.
Van Gaal said this week that he's given them a lot of information. It's going to take them some time. I don't know how long. He keeps changing the timeline. I thought it was 3 months, and then he said it was a season of transition. So maybe it's somewhere in between.
Yeah, maybe so. They look like they're getting it to me. You get the sense that they're getting it. There's a lot of very good positional play going on. There's a lot of people covering each other's spaces, a lot of people using the ball really intelligently, and it hasn't all come together yet. But given that, last week, we were really concerned about West Ham's physical presence, actually, to come out of this game with a win. I don't care if it's like it shouldn't be this way, in inverted commas, that coming out away from Old Trafford, having beaten West Ham, should be a really good thing. The fact is, the way things are at the moment, it just is a really good thing that's happened. And I think it's just really important for our season and all that kind of stuff. And as you say, it will get better, and there are still massive problems, but they're all going to be addressed. None of these problems are going to be ignored, are they? And that's kind of an interesting thing, because I feel like ever since we started this podcast, we've been talking about various different entrenched problems in the Manchester United squad that haven't been addressed. But I don't feel like any of this isn't going to be addressed. The defensive situation, that's where the money's getting spent next, right?
Yeah, I assume so. And Van Gaal has the credentials of a manager to go fix this. This is why he's not getting the criticism. I saw some press this week that said if this was David Moyes, he would have been blasted by now in the media. Oh no, it was Robbie Savage who wrote in his media column that the media wasn't being negative enough about Louis van Gaal. Interesting lack of self-awareness there from Savage. It shouldn't surprise anyone, I suppose. Look, it's because the man has a track record, and people are confident that he will build something greater than the sum of all the parts, and the sum of the parts is very great, right? So he will get it right eventually at United, and we'll see how long it'll take. It's been quite a painful first 6 games of the season, I think. QPR aside, there hasn't really been a game which United felt comfortable in. It could easily have dropped points today for many reasons. Some of it was sinking into the shell in those first 15 minutes of the second half, and some of it was Wayne Rooney's stupidity, and some of it was just being down to 10 men and allowing West Ham to get on top. But could have dropped the points, didn't, and that's a massive positive. Everton at home next weekend, really big game. Everton playing good football again this season is going to be a huge game for United, and given the circumstances, given the amount of injuries, given the form, and given the results to date, it's not a game in which you can obviously say United are favourites.
No, absolutely not. Just to go back to that Robbie Savage point, not just a lack of self-awareness, also a profound lack of media awareness, because by October, not a single negative press article had been written about David Moyes, because the press gave Moyes a completely free pass, and certain aspects of the more than a little xenophobic British sporting press have not been quite so kind to Van Gaal. A lot more op-ed pieces. Oh, is he going to do it? Is he going to be all right? None of that with Moyes at this time.
Well, yeah. So, in summary of the game, United played well in parts, didn't play well in others, and Wayne Rooney's an idiot. And is that a good summary? People moan about. I think someone said. FFS, will you stop talking about Wayne Rooney? And this was after Jay had published a piece on Wayne Rooney. It was nothing to do with me, Gov. It's not just me having a go at him. Actually, Van Gaal was pretty sensible in the aftermath. I think said that you can give a red card for that, and he can imagine why it happened, and so on. So Van Gaal doesn't appear to be the man to moan about referees too much, or at least he hasn't done to date at United. We'll see whether that comes later or not. All managers like a whinge, don't they, eventually?
But I think it's really savvy of him not to do it yet, because he's saving it for when he's blameless.
Yep.
You know, I think that's very savvy.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's exactly what he's doing. He's smart enough. He's got his own version of English, does Van Gaal, but he's got a good enough command of it to know exactly what he's saying.
He's got a good enough command of it to make up his own slightly alternative language where observate means observe, and of course trainer coach. Manchester United never going to have a manager again as far as I'm concerned. Just a string of trainer coaches. I wanted to have a little word about the atmosphere inside the stadium because it was really interesting today. So it was like near enough to the singing section that you could hear it clearly, and there were very long extended periods where you know those games at Old Trafford where all you can hear is the away fans.
Lots of them.
Yeah, the singing section being there for the most part really has stopped that being the case, because most of the time the singing section are singing something and you can hear them. You know, there was a weird period at the end of the first half, not just after we'd conceded, but like right at the end of the first half when you could have heard a pin drop. But apart from that, it was pretty good. And by the end, it was incredibly loud all around the ground. You know, Sir Alex stand tier 2, not loud by any means normally, but it was really, really noisy at the end, and that was really good. The only other thing I wanted to pick out from that sort of thing was when Van Persie scored and his song rained, started going around the ground. He's given it the old arms in the air. Yep, come on. He might as well have done Hulk Hogan and cupped his hand behind his ear, to listen to the crowd singing it. He was very happy, and you could see, like, because the Falcao song's taken off so much, Van Persie's obviously very happy to hear his song sung.
Yeah, ended the game as captain as well, and he might start the next one as captain if Darren Fletcher doesn't start against Everton, which is interesting given the summer's debate about who should be captain. Allardyce in the aftermath says, "We fluffed them and we blew it," which was an interesting turn of phrase from the big man.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess before we preview next week's game, should we take a bunch of listener questions? Because we've got absolutely tons.
Let's go for it.
All right, and this is on that very subject. Simon Stevens, a big supporter of the Rantcast, says, who should be made captain when Wayne Rooney is eventually / inevitably replaced? Too soon for Daley Blind? I think Daley Blind is going to be captain within 2 years, but I do think it's too soon for him for sure, and I would assume that Van Persie will get it next week. It was kind of interesting, actually, because Van Persie, when he got the armband, he used it pretty effectively. Actually, he was going back and having little words and stuff, and it was a calming influence for sure.
Well, there's certainly a lack of leadership, and I think there's a lack of leadership in multiple facets. We've had this conversation on the pod before. I don't think leadership is screaming at your fellow mates. I don't actually think it's the Tony Adams, Terry Butcher, John Terry, Wayne Rooney school of leadership that's relevant these days. I think actually Sam Allardyce said something very interesting in the build-up to this game. He said that players need an arm around them much more. They're much more sensitive. They're much more sensitive to criticism than they used to be. I think that's true, right? So if captain is translating the manager's wishes, both tactically and philosophically, it's also knowing when to have a go and when to strike fear and when to put an arm round player's shoulder. And, you picked out the fact that Rojo and particularly David De Gea were talking to Paddy McNair even after he made mistakes, and he did make mistakes, obviously, inevitably, and they were kind of coaching him through the game rather than screaming at him, as Wayne Rooney may have done, I suppose. Then, a different type of leadership is kind of needed these days. So, it's a long rambling way of saying I think we've got a lack of leaders, and some of that's to do with the transitionary nature of the squad. A lot of new players in there. No one's obviously the leader of this group, Maybe Wayne Rooney would be it, but for many of the failings he has as both player and person.
I think the next crop of leaders is in the squad, though, because I think Rocco's got some potential in that regard. Blind definitely has leadership potential. Phil Jones, I think, is definitely a potential leader for the future, if he can ever stay fit for 3 games in a row. And Ander Herrera's also got quite a lot of marshalling and midfield general, and he's kind of got a slightly Brian Robson-esque approach to football, where it's like be an effective attacking player but also leather into tackles, and that's probably quite a useful captaincy trait. So I think there are actually there's a lack of leadership, but I do think that has a lot to do with the new players that have been brought in. I think there is a considerable amount of potential in that crop to be a leader in the future. Because, after Nemanja Vidic's first game, you wouldn't have said he'd be a future Manchester United captain, would you?
No, but his leadership came out, reasonably quickly, I think. Anyway, look, you're right, there's some potential, but one of them has to emerge. Phil Jones is an obvious one, right? But he has to stay fit, and he just can't do it at the moment. 3 years on from Jones joining United and Smalling, and 6 or 7 years since Evans joined United, and all three of them have suffered injury problems on such an ongoing basis that it's hard to believe that you can rely on any of them at the moment. You really want them to come good. Jones, in particular, was having a good season. It's a real shame he got injured because he might have turned into a leader. I don't mean the next captain necessarily. He's still, 22 or whatever. But definitely a leader, and United's kind of short of that at the moment. When you think back to some of the great United sides, it's a cliche saying the 94 side, so this side pales in comparison, right, compared to the personalities in that 94 side. But that's a good benchmark, right? So a few players have to emerge, and they have to take the responsibility seriously. And we can't be having performances like we've had sort of in aggregate over the first 7 games of the season after Christmas. By then Van Gaal's philosophy should be on board. These players should have gelled. There's enough talent there that United should be putting in some real performances.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I definitely think there are signs that it's coming. I was thinking about that Leicester game today. All the good things that happened in that Leicester game are sustainable in the medium-term future. Like all that amazing attacking play, that's in the squad to do that. And, it's very sustainable with the players we've got. And that complete defensive collapse is probably a short-term problem rather than a long-term problem, assuming that defence is addressed in the way we need it to be. At Mlahoratep, that's my best guess at that name. Oh, it's Peter Home backwards. That's his name. There you go. That's easy. A huge De Gea fan, but he seems way off his game as of late. What do you think is responsible for this form dip? Like maybe he just really misses Chris Woods. I don't know. He's definitely having a slightly ropey season. It could be the curse of Player of the Year, because 2 seasons ago it was Valencia, and then the following season rubbish. Then it was Carrick, Bobbins, then De Gea. Maybe he's been affected by the curse.
I don't think there's any such thing, and I don't think it's that. I think it's just that the back four is changing. Back 3, back 4, back 5, whatever is changing constantly in front of him. The quality of players has dropped, and that's affecting his game. Back 4 is back 4, back 5, whatever is unsure, and that's translated itself into some of De Gea's performances. His form has definitely dipped a little bit, but then again, can you pick a player out of United's defenders who's had a good season to date?
Well, yeah, Phil Jones. Then he got injured. Blackett, considering where he's come from, has had a pretty impressive season. I mean, no one's been consistently excellent all the way through, but Raphael looks like he's approaching his proper self again to some extent. Rocco's started fairly nicely.
They've also conceded a ton of goals. That's a very rosy view of what's actually happened, right? So, potential, but I don't think any of them played well, and I think that's translated into De Gea's performances too. There's more to come, and we know what a good goalkeeper De Gea is, so I don't think we need to worry too much.
No, and I think easily the biggest thing is going to be a settled back four. Settled back fours are crucial for great sides, aren't they?
The trouble is, right, Smalling, Evans, Jones, Raphael, always injured.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Always injured. And I'm afraid you just have to look at history to say they're always going to be injured too.
You would imagine so. Although sometimes players do have periods in their career where they're afflicted by a lot of injuries and then go through long stretches where they're not afterwards. But I think that's only likely to happen to one of them at best, isn't it? So anyway, we'll see. At Ben Glorious says, if you drop soap on the floor, does the soap get dirty or does the floor get clean? That's really straightforward. The soap gets dirty. There's no question about that.
And the floor doesn't get clean either because it's got soap all over it.
Yeah, exactly. You could then use that soap to clean a small part of the floor with the correct materials. But yeah. At Man United 246 says, who would win a fight between a tiger or a shark?
Oh, come on. Obvious. This is ridiculous. And what does 246 mean? That's the number of days that United have actually been good over the last 2 years. No, that's way more than the number of days United have actually been good.
It would clearly depend on whether the match was on land or C. Like, that's just dead straightforward. Right. Aside from Falcao, says at Alibab77, where are the new songs for the new players? Herrera, Di Maria, Blind? I've got one for Blind. Blind is the one. Blind is the one. Blind is the one. Blind is the one we've waited for.
Terrible.
No, not terrible. Brilliant.
That's the oral version of the blind leading the blind.
At Maz_Man_United said, seriously, has it happened before where captains are dropped on the basis of their performances and they don't necessarily have an assurance of a place in the first team? Yeah, I mean, Fergie would drop his captain in a heartbeat, wouldn't he?
Yeah, for the most part, his captains were good enough to be in the side most of the time. And of course, Roy Keane dropped out of the side, but mostly dropped out of the side due to various injuries as he got older, and then MUTV gate.
Yeah.
Robson dropped out of the side because he got injured. Bruce was moved on eventually. So Cantona retired abruptly. He didn't drop out of the side at all. But I don't think, from the body language and the words that Van Gaal uses, that he's intending on dropping Rooney anytime soon. Of course, Rooney's managed to drop himself for the next 3 games.
Yes!
Some people might say that, yes.
I mean, really, honestly, it's not because I don't want Rooney in the team. It's because I want Juan Mata behind 2 strikers. And that is only going to happen if Rooney's not in the team for the time being.
What happens if United win the next 3 games at a canter?
Yeah.
Somehow magically sort out the back line and start defending well, and it all clicks up front.
Well, that was what Maz_Man_UTD was that was the subsequent question, was exactly that. What is the outcome of that then?
Mattis scores 5 goals in the next 3 games and sets up a bunch of chances for Falcao and Van Persie. Yeah, it's hard to drop him, but he will get dropped.
Well, not necessarily, because at that point you could rest Van Persie, potentially, so... But he will eventually, for sure. At Craig English 92, one of my very favourite Twitter people, says, McNair, just for Christmas or the perfect Blackett backup? I've got to go with just for Christmas for now. It was lovely. He didn't look overawed, but he's not at that level yet, is he? He did very well, but that should be a cameo.
Yeah, and it will be a cameo, yeah. Interesting that Tom Thorpe came on as well, gave him a debut. I'm not sure that the Thorpe will stay at United for all that much longer, so he's at the age of 21 finally got a first team debut, and it was nice, yeah, even if it was for about 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, and it's kind of really a bit even more of a kick in the teeth for him, isn't it, that McNair started ahead of him, because he would have thought perhaps he was ahead of McNair in the pecking order.
Yeah, well, maybe Van Gaal doesn't have pecking orders, because aside from Wayne Rooney, because Blackett would not have been many people's choices as a first pick central defender for Manchester United. He wouldn't have been many people's choice as a first pick left back either, which is the position he's played for most of his career. Transition from left back to centre back over the last year or so, really.
Yeah, absolutely. At White Pele 10 and at Freshman United, both very kindly asking me whether I had a good time today. I had an absolutely brilliant time. It was lovely to watch football. It was lovely that we won. So that was super, super great. But it was also really nice to meet some Rantcast listeners, which is always just a lovely thing when that happens in real life. And I want to give a big special shout out to at Emil Joe 89 who made my day by calling out to me at the end of the match. So that was really nice. So yeah, a lovely day, and met the chaps from Red Mancunian, met Tom from the Can They Score podcast, chatted with Noz from the Football Flush for a bit. It was all football podcasters all the time. It was brilliant.
Yeah, just name dropping there.
No, not
Paolo. Fame has gone to your head.
Yeah, totally. That's it now. Yeah. I'm too big for this.
Let's give a list of 5 reasons why fame has gone to Paul's head, shall we?
See,
stick it up on Bleacher Report tomorrow.
You're always here to make me feel terrible about myself as quickly as good things happen there, Ed. I'm very much looking forward to next week, where, thanks to the kindness of another Rantcast listener who will remain nameless, has very generously given me and Ed use of the tickets for next week. So we're going to go to a football match together for the first time since West Brom away last year, which I guess leads us nicely on to previewing Everton.
Yeah, big game for United. Very big game for United. So can Reds build on this result? Have we got any defenders back? I'm not sure. I don't think Smalling and Evans are that far away from fitness, are they? So you never know. Will Rojo keep his place in the centre of defence? Does Luke Shaw keep his place? Certainly played well enough to justify it, I think. Can United kind of up the game? Certainly Everton are going to ask plenty of questions. They are, not slipping back any, I don't think, this season. Martinez obviously got them playing good football all round, solid result in the Merseyside derby. Maybe perhaps they're disappointed they didn't even win that. Huge game for United. I'm not sure I could call it either way at the moment.
So the only thing I've seen from the Merseyside derby was Jagielka's absolute wonder goal. I assume that Harry Redknapp has sat Rio Ferdinand down in front of a video of that and said, "Here, son, see if you could do this by next week."
Yeah, well, of course, Rio has scored in one of these games against Liverpool too. So.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, in fact, maybe Jagielka learned it by watching videos of Rio. I think Jagielka's was a slightly better goal.
I mean, troubled times for Liverpool, of course, not picking up too many points, and not going to say that either of us called that one out or anything.
No, look, I came clean last week, Ed. You're definitely 1-0 ahead on that. I'm hoping that my buoyant optimistic about United's future defensive prospects brings us back to 1-1.
Well, you're optimistic, which maybe you've picked up from Louis van Gaal. It will certainly be well-founded if United get a result against Everton, for sure, because Everton, they haven't picked up a lot of points this season. They have drawn too many games, you'd say. They're a team that I'm sure will be fighting for European places at the end of the season. So if United can progress from kind of scrappy win against West Ham to beat Everton at home, which we haven't managed for a couple of seasons or something, will be, massive bonus.
Yeah, and I have to say, my optimism doesn't necessarily extend to thinking that we're going to beat Everton on Sunday, because I think that's going to be a really difficult game. It's kind of an interesting game in a lot of ways, because you'd think, to a certain extent, Everton's style of play might be something we'd rather play against than an Allardyce team, for example, because, keeping a ball on the ground, we can sort of do something about that. Our movement can match theirs potentially. But I think Lukaku will definitely cause whatever ragtag bunch of ne'er-do-wells we call a back four next week. I think it'd be really interesting to see whether, even if we've got enough fit centre-backs, Luke Shaw keeps his place at left-back, because he looked really assured today, and he's really contributed in the attack as well. So I think he'll play, right? I'd expect him to.
He deserves to get a game. I mean, of course, a big factor in this one is the fact that Everton have a UEFA Cup game. It's one of the things that I think has caused them some trouble at the early part of this season. They've got to get used to those kind of Thursday, Sunday turnarounds, and it's a lunchtime kickoff on Sunday as well, so they're going to away game in Eastern Europe. They're going to get back on, Friday. They probably won't train Friday, and they'll have a light training session on Saturday, and then they're straight into the game. So that will have an effect on Everton. That's good news for United. United have got a week now, full preparation, which Everton don't have. And, there's a lot of things in United's favour. It would be helpful to get some players back, of course. A lot of players out at the moment. The key ones are some defenders. I don't think it's fair to expose McNair and Rojo in the centre of defence there. I mean, maybe Rojo will find his place there for the long term. He certainly didn't look out of place, did he? And, maybe he's the answer, because Smalling and Evans and Jones are so inconsistent in terms of their fitness and often performances too. So we'll see. It's an important one for United, but definitely an advantage Everton having to play. Yeah,
I completely agree with that. And I guess maybe, I don't know, I think I've got to go with a measured prediction of a draw for that one. I think a draw is a pretty good result for us in that game, isn't it? It's certainly not a disaster.
Yes, although United need points, right? Up to 7th.
Yes!
As we speak, up to 7th, but that is the 7th that's 8 points behind Chelsea. So, look, I don't think realistically United are putting in a title bid right now.
How many points is it behind 4th, Ed? Let's be real.
It's only a couple behind Arsenal, right? So, for all the disaster that has been the start of the season, all the negative copy, it's not far off where United actually have to be in 3 off 3rd. Southampton being the surprise team in there, I think everyone thought they'd fall apart given how many players left, but they've had a very positive start to the season. Probably won't continue for the whole season, but So United are not in a disastrous position, given some of the difficulties this season. That result today is a massive bonus. Van Persie said afterwards it was a huge bonus. It was much more than the 3 points, and he's right. And United have to kick on from here. There's only a certain period of time in which United can keep getting bad results and keep being inconsistent without it starting to then affect the side. Momentum is important. I do believe that Van Gaal's a higher quality coach than Moyes. I do believe that he's got a direction he's heading in and has a vision where Moyes never did.
Yeah, yeah.
I know I state the obvious there, which is why you're laughing. But it kind of needs to be said, right? But the lack of momentum can impact, right? You wouldn't want to get to a position where people are starting to lose faith. And that's why the games against Everton and the upcoming ones in the next few weeks are really important.
I completely agree with that. I have to say the other thing though is being United centric, and I think being sort of vaguely optimistic about the future of United, but a bit worried about the present. We think about the challenge posed to us by the opposition, but we're also an enormous challenge for opposition teams at the moment, because to try and defend against the attacking options we've got, when Falcao starts scoring, it's going to be very pretty indeed, because he was brilliant today, bar that goal that he's kind of desperately needed, but his hold-up play and his ability to keep the ball and surrounded by players that kept thinking he was going to lose the ball, he just barely ever did.
Well, he's a very high-quality number 9, very old-fashioned number 9, but a very high-quality one, and obviously that's why he gets paid the mega bucks. Well, look, put it this way, there's Everton, there's the international break, there's the away game at West Brom, and then there's those 2 massive games against Chelsea and Manchester City before the end of, sort of around the end of October. And that's, those are huge games in terms of the tempo, the momentum, the feeling around Van Gaal's squad. Imagine that United win against Everton, win against West Brom, feel good going into the national break, feel good going into that game at home to Chelsea. Huge, right? Or draw against Everton, difficult match away at West Brom, a couple of draws or a loss and a draw or something like that. Completely different vibe going into that game when Chelsea come to Old Trafford. Yeah,
and today was, as we record this, today was the first part of generating the necessary momentum. The Leicester game should have been a comfortable win for United. Like, it was turned by refereeing and then we totally lost it. But that game was kind of travelling in a direction. Like the first half of that game, the first half of the game today, the entire performance against QPR, barring a couple of 10-minute spells, there has been some great football on show from United. So if they can put it together for longer periods of time, which you would think they will, and that cohesion and philosophy starts to build, there could be some pretty good times ahead even in the short-term future, I reckon.
Yeah, all very positive then. Yeah,
I knew you wouldn't like that.
No, it's not that I don't like it. I just think that there are so many questions about a lot of players at United. Less about the new players, obviously. Maybe Rojo is the one that there's a big question mark about. Not his quality per se, just it's going to be a tough time for him, I think. And it has been, He's... as a kind of I like his aggression. I like the fact that he wants to take a lead. I don't like where he stands on the pitch some of the time, and he's got to learn some of that. And then Luke Shaw, the question mark, just simply because Van Gaal said he wasn't fit and then didn't pick him, and he had this injury, and so now he's been in the side. Now he's had a good game, good run out against Everton. Maybe he'll get to bed himself into the side and people can stop with this kind of nonsense around, Van Gaal doesn't rate him, as Mullenstein said this week. Or said. He didn't really say that. That was a headline.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because a lot of the United ranks were, or the wagons were circled around Moyes. Like, there was a lot of positive commentary around Moyes from the ex-United players and stuff, and it's just not the same for Van Gaal at all. It's kind of interesting because Giggs is at the heart of that regime too, but I don't know. Gary Neville is not as nice about the team without Phil Neville being there as he was when Phil Neville was there, is he?
Well, no, that's true. UKIP's Gary Neville is not quite the same sponsor of Van Gaal as he was of David Moyes.
Yeah, quite. So, predictions for the Everton game. I think I'm going to go with 2-2.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 1-1. It's clearly going to be really tight, and I find it hard to believe that Everton will come to Old Trafford and not score.
Yeah, but it's quite hard to imagine. The reason I went for 2-2 is the thing about that United side at the moment is it's like, there's a lot of goals in that team. And they have not had any difficulty putting the ball in the net, have they, in the last 3 games?
No, they haven't. The amount of talent. Got to assume that Mata comes back into the side. Of course, Van Gaal could well troll us all and play a completely different formation. He could bring Fletcher in and push Di Maria forward. That is another option. A lot less dynamic attackingly to do that. I hope Mata comes in. I really want him to come good at United. I think it would be a massive shame if he's sold, not least because it would leave United without a proper number 10 after having like 15 of them at one stage. Shinji's gone. If Mata goes too, then left with Rooney, who's not a number 10, and Januzaj, who would like to be a number 10, but we have very little evidence that he actually is a number 10 yet.
Much like Wayne Rooney.
Well, we have lots of evidence that he is not a number 10. Lots and lots of evidence. Which people don't like when we say that in print or in spoken word.
No, they don't. But this was definitely like a victory for the people who think Wayne Rooney's not a very good leader when he got himself sent off at a really crucial time in the game. But anyway, good old Wayne Rooney. He might come good. He might improve as a captain. That might happen too. Who knows? So we might improve as podcasters and have more to talk about after the next game. We've managed to squeeze an hour out of these 2 games again, Ed. Not bad.
Yep, very good. And in the meantime, you'll find Paul at UTD Rantcast on Twitter, where he'll also be posting nonsense that he writes for the Bleacher Report and occasionally for other websites too. The Splitter. I've noticed. It's all right, Paul. I'll forgive you. And you can find me at United Rant, where I'll probably be engaged in arguments with some random. And you can find us both at United Rant on Facebook. We are also on Google+.
Are we on Ello? I think I've got an Ello invite. We might be on Ello soon.
I'm not even sure I know what Ello is, but that's because I'm not one of the cool kids. In the meantime, if you love the show and want to show your appreciation, it's United Rant /donate. And enjoy the game against Everton next weekend. We certainly will, one way or another.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Don't give up comfort for style. Mack Weldon's Ace Collection makes it effortless to look good while feeling comfortable. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 20% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code MAC25.